Thanks for staying with us. So much has been said about insecurity, but it is election year, and a good number of people, including our guest that will be introducing shortly, have talked about the fact that usually election time in our country, we have such a surge. Getting ahead of it is another thing altogether. But the dimension of it that happened in Imo State is something very, very concerning and disconcerting. Let's have a conversation around that and a number of other related issues with our guest this morning, who is Alfred Ononugbo, a security consultant. He joins us virtually from Lekki. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Ononugbo. First of all, let me just ask you what your thoughts are on hearing and seeing the information concerning the attack on the CVR process in this country, in Imo State to be precise.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show this morning. I felt personally disappointed, not just because the process was disrupted, but because I believe the perpetrators are Igbo men. They are our brothers. They are people who should have value and respect for human lives. And innocent citizens, people who went about seeking their daily bread and trying to exercise their rights as enshrined in the Constitution, we are so treated. And I would like to use this opportunity to condole with the families of the INEC officials or official that was killed, and also the community that took this, painful exposure to threats of such an unimaginable magnitude. It's disappointing and it's worrisome too. It's of serious concern. I think something has gone out of control, and that's my view. I'm still in shock. I'm still surprised that such mannerless execution of, law-abiding citizens could be carried out by Nigerians and Igbo men, for that matter.
Well, we'll come to the elections dimension shortly, but one of the questions I always ask, and I continue to express my confidence, personal confidence, in Nigeria's security apparatus and intelligence, because we haven't invested in these personnel for nothing. I have implicit confidence. The question that I'm just asking is, isn't there enough intelligence to forestall this, to know that this is going to happen, given that we have officials, security officials all over the country, in every single local government in the country? Isn't this information supposed to have gone out for some people to take action to forestall it, to prevent it from happening?
Well, I think our services, our personnel have been overwhelmed. There are so much happening, and these are human beings, and they are working within the resources available to them. I can assure you, no personnel of the Nigerian Security Services will be happy to have this kind of situation recorded within their area of command. So it's a situation where probably the services are overwhelmed, and the resources available for them to engage these threats probably could also be a challenge. Also, I also realize that there seems to be a disconnect also between the government and the people, because we must help the security agencies as individuals, as communities. We just won't sit down and wait for them to find out. It's people that provide information that helps the agencies. They are not spirits. So they depend on intelligence, on relevant and valid information passed across to them to be able to work. They can't just analyze nothing. And I think we should look at, building a bridge between the Nigerian people. It's come to the time that Nigerians will begin to also get involved in the security of our country. They should begin to participate in gathering intelligence. That goes through families, community development associations, traditional rulers. Everybody must get involved at this time. We are the victims,
Well, Mr. Onugbo, you've raised two issues. You've raised two issues.
So everybody should get involved.
Yeah,
we
you've
can't
raised two
leave it
issues.
any longer.
You've raised two issues right now. Two things that you have pointed out. One, the security infrastructure personnel in particular are overwhelmed. And two, gap, if for want of a better word, a disconnect between the people and the security agencies who are supposed to give, who are supposed to get information from the people. So, in terms of the overwhelmingness of the responsibilities that security agencies have to deal with, one would say, okay, maybe that is something that government has to deal with. But bridging the gap, this disconnect between the people and security agencies, now that is something that has to be done how? Because you know that there have been cases where people give information to security agencies and it didn't quite pan out the way that they had it in mind eventually. So what do the people do now?
Well, I think the government should begin to consider restructuring the services. For instance, I believe strongly we should at this time begin to consider state police. This will give states responsibilities and some level of constitutional provisions to ensure that activities of criminals are effectively monitored. And also, I know that in the Southeast in particular, we have this organized structure of our own. We have town unions, we have youth associations, we have women organizations. These are structures that the government could study and look at how we can harness their potentials in helping us to build a safe and secure nation. Because these are people who interact with themselves and the society on a daily basis. A uniformed and employed police officer lives somewhere, goes to work, and he has files on his table. They are so occupied with so much. So we have to begin to look at, can we now consider the state police services?
But we have, Mr. Onugbo, there were thoughts that, went out that we said that we have community police men dispensed by the Office of the Inspector General of Police at some point. Is that saying that that program is not working?
I don't think it has become effective. It could be existing. A lot of things we do here are good, but functionality. I know we have at some time had this whole idea about community policing, but there doesn't seem to be evidence, there doesn't seem to be facts to match that they exist. So probably we should look at it. We should also look at the structuring. We should look at the administrative system that guides them, and also the provisions of resources with which these structures can function. If we set up something, there are no budgetary allocations, there are no offices, there are no structures. Who do they report to? Who recruits them? And what are their limits? Because, it's observed. Maybe I'll just mention this. A lot of people are frustrated. There is hopelessness. So when even you set up a little thing and put a uniform on a Nigerian, frankly, the next thing, you begin to see him operate outside the provisions of the laws, setting them up. You have some uniform agencies owned by states, impounding vehicles, stopping vehicles, searching people, arresting. So these are little things. So I think there are chains of things I expect we should do. One is an aggressive national orientation that can drive us back to patriotism. If we don't see and know that we own Nigeria and we have respect, we have benefits, we have things that, you know, we are entitled to as citizens of this country. It will be difficult, even if you employ people into the community police service or you engage them with the federal police service or Nigerian army, to be patriotic in the discharge of their duties. And I think that is the social or moral angle missing in the whole equation. It's not just having an employment. Most people see employment as means of making ends to meet. They don't see it as channels of delivering service and building the nation. So it's about how much I can get. And it's from, you know, the lowest to the topmost. So these are missing links. And we need to find a way. We really need to study and look at ways we can, you know, work on these things and bring them back. But the community policing service cannot work without proper constitutional provisions and resources for them to engage. We also we see a lot of people just, you know, taking advantage of whatever we provide, because an insecure man cannot secure anybody. So if you employ people who feel insecure, economically insecure, socially insecure, politically insecure, it's just a question of time, a matter of time, and they become part of the problem.
Okay. I'd like us to talk about this particular attack some more. And I know there's the warfare that happens, you know, in terms of intelligence on the field, the combat and all of that. But there's also the psychological warfare, you know, the mental aspect of this, what this kind of attack is meant to achieve. I believe you've seen that video which surfaced, said to be of that attack, that gruesome video. What do you think, watching that video, what do you think this particular attack on INEC was meant to achieve?
I did listen to the voice note on that clip, and it saddened me. The attack was simply intended to put fear and traumatize the people and discourage them from participating in the exercise. They are simply trying to discourage the democratic process in the country, and I find that very disturbing. You know, I was watching the little kids, the women on the floor, and I watched them execute the INEC staff. They just want to put fear. They just want to intimidate the people. They want to drive them back home and ensure that they do not participate in the democratic process. And that's very sad. It's a big threat to the elections of 2023. It's a serious threat to the participation of people in electing credible candidates or giving mandate to credible political aspirants that will represent and help drive development and attract democratic dividends to their people. It's a big threat, and I think there should be a national security assessment of that development.
So, I mean, that video is too gruesome for broadcast, but watching that video and trying to maybe peek into the minds of the attackers, what would make non-state actors who clearly, I mean, by their numbers, cannot take on the whole, I mean, government apparatus, the whole security apparatus, can't take them on, definitely, on a normal day. But what will embolden them that much to carry out such attack in such a brazen manner on such an important institution of democracy?
Well, it's traditional for insurgents to express themselves through such heinous crimes. They are criminals, and they make statements by committing such atrocities. They send messages to the authorities, and if you look carefully, they strategically target government initiatives, government establishments. They are trying to send a message. They are trying to also, not just to, like the video, the voice note on the video, was saying. They are sending a message, and their message is clear. They don't want government activities. They don't want democracy. They don't want people to express their constitutionally given rights and privileges. They want to recondition the minds of the people. They want to control people using terror, using fear, and their message is clear. They are lawless. They don't want the rule of law. They don't have any objective. Because I believe that the political platform allows for everybody. If you feel you have a vision for your people, you love your people, you care about your people, the most healthy procedure or process is to get involved in democratic process. And if you're elected, you bring your ideas, which means the people trusted you enough to give a mandate. Now you are seizing the people's rights and privileges, abusing them. It's worrisome. I don't think they have any other message other than to send fear, to terrorize the people, and to discourage them from participating in the democratic process.
We'll come to winning that particular war, especially against scaring people from coming out to exercise their franchise and all. But the closest we have come to identifying these men is to term them unknown gunmen, and I mean that on a lot of levels sends different signals. And is it worrying for you that that's what we keep terming them as, unknown gunmen? And what does that do essentially in this whole fight?
Well, first of all, I would like to, I think the way we brand these people also gives them impetus. These are criminals. Why would we, just like we had for a long time branding criminals and terrorists as bandits, these are criminals. Their mission was to destroy the people, because I don't see what they have gained by killing people who were collecting cards. If you feel that you have a better, stronger message that must keep the people, tell them not to vote the wrong people. Tell them not to allow wrong people to manage the resources. Look at most of our communities with all the budgetary provisions over the years. You go there, you find nothing. Now, the rich people you find are those who have participated in politics. And I also think these are some of the things sending wrong signals to the people. There seems to be this belief that the government protects the criminals and then punishes the law-abiding people. I listened to a clip a few days ago that says, look, we fight so hard to give mandate to criminals, and then we work so hard to kill. When they catch a thief in the market, we rally around, beat them to stupor, and execute them publicly. Meanwhile, we go and vote people who steal our future, steal our education, steal our healthcare services and all that. So I think there should be an area alignment, because the terrorists are products of this frustrating system. No justification for their actions, but there are people who have lost hope in the system. There are people who are being shortchanged. There are people who feel they are disappointed with the way things are being run. There are people who feel they've been denied privileges, possibly justice. There are questions. It's not safe to be sympathetic, but at the same time, there are elements among these guys that have been exposed to injustice. They've been exposed to all kinds of situations and abuse and all that. And then there are those also who are criminals leveraging on whatever platform provided by political disagreements and challenges and hiding under that to perpetrate their crime. They're just criminals. They just want to kill people. They are murderers. So we have all shades of characters embedded in this whole confusion.
So what will be the right term? If you can hear me, Mr. Onon, but what will be the right term to label them as? So clearly this unknown gunmen, is even not helping the matter at all. So what would be the right term?
They are murderers. They are just simply murderers. I see nothing for which they should kill people. If you love your people, you protect them. You know, when you kill your own to make a statement, the instinct to kill is in you. It's not as if you are killing because you are fighting a cause. The people you shot were not armed. They were just simple, ordinary, everyday human beings that went about their business. And they went to exercise their rights as enshrined in the Constitution of Nigeria. I can understand that there are elements of people who claim that they don't want to identify with Nigeria as a state. That's not a secret anymore. And I see them trying to carry out their campaigns on social media and all that. But I also realize that some other elements who are not even involved probably in the whole campaign for self-actualization have also seized their activities to perpetrate crime. I want these people to be seen as murderers. No community, nobody should entertain anybody moving around with arms in the name of agitation. There are many platforms and opportunities to express our disagreement with the way things are being done, and one of them is by going for elections. So if you're attacking the election system, tell us, how do you then correct the ills and the shortcomings of our political leaders?
Well, Mr. Onugo, there are those who will wonder, okay, so if that is the reality that's on our hands right now, then what are the options before us? I remember, I think it was 2 days ago, the president's office released a statement from Garba Shehu, the president's SSA Media and Publicity. He said in part, people don't have to destroy what is there in a desperate quest to get power. That suggests to me, or maybe someone else, that it's not just these people that we see are just like foot soldiers. It's the real battle is something else altogether. Do you agree with that?
Yes, to a very large extent I do. And I also believe that at this point, I think the government should begin to look at the option of aggressive reorientation. Some of the things driving these conflicts are embedded in religion, ethnicity, and of course, political interests. So we will need to look clearly. We have to consider engaging the religious establishments, looking at the National Orientation Agency, fund them, and have a template. We should have a template for reorientation, and it should be driven aggressively. We should also review our cost of labor. I'm sorry, I may have to touch this issue. Nigerians are paid so little for working so hard, and those who don't work as much walk away with the bulk of the resources provided for. I mean, you walk into, with due respect, to the police barracks and police stations, and you see the poor state of facilities. I want to believe the IG is concerned and it's trying, but with what resources? How much are these people giving? And how much gets to the job? Even when billions were approved for this project, how much gets to the job? So we must begin to measure our expenditure with our returns. We need to look at the welfare of the services. Are they being well managed? Are they being motivated?
Most certainly, something very concerning.
Apart from national orientation, we use all the media. We mobilize the mosques and churches and traditional worshippers. We must all get involved in giving back Nigeria to Nigerians.
Well,
right
there's
now,
one other
it's
thing.
Like Nigeria is on sale.
Well, Mr. Onugo, one other thing that's been a concern for a good number of people is the strength of deterrence. There are those who wonder, of all the attacks and everything that we've been hearing, no arrests, and cases where there have been arrests, no prosecutions. It would seem like, okay, this has happened, we report it, we get in the news, and that's it. We seem to hear more from the other side than from the authorities' side on our part. So I'm wondering, do you think we have, even though the laws are strong, do you think the execution of those laws, the enforcement of those laws are strong enough for a deterrence of insecurity across the nation, especially for the elections?
No, I don't think so. I also am concerned. Now, you should understand that the terrorists also are not dumb. They are smart guys. And many times also the handicap I believe the authorities face is the fact that they take human shields, if you realize. You can't just wipe away the criminals with law-abiding citizens in their custody. So they take those human shields with them. They use them to protect themselves. So that also is a challenge. Now, you also look at how do they recruit people. I have a reason to believe that we have more people involved in terrorism than the entire Nigerian Army, Police, Air Force put together. Because these are everyday human beings you think are normal, but they've built networks, they've built, tentacles with these criminal organizations. And an average hungry man is for sale. They get promised maybe 5,000, 10,000. I don't think they benefit so much, but because they are getting something so little. So we have to look at how Nigerians are benefiting from government. I think the situation, just like what happens to us during politics, is the highest bidder. People can tell you, oh, we belong here, we belong there. And you find the same group moving from APC to PDP to UPD and all that. People are hungry and they take advantage of every opportunity to get something, even when it destroys them. So I see the recruitment system of the terrorists as a big challenge to our services put together. And one has reasons to also think that there might be elements, even in the services, who are sympathetic with some of these criminals. So, because when we recruit people based on quota system, no credible profiling, people are not assessed based on their crime history and all that. And they end up in our uniform services. They end up in our security services. They will remain modes. They will remain channels for afflicting the country, because a criminal is a criminal, whether in uniform or out of uniform. So we've got to look at those things. So there might be some reason for some kind of security forensic audit. We need to audit the personnel that we parade as our security, because if they are part of the criminals, all they will get is sabotage. They will be providing intelligence for the criminals. They will be compromising on operational strategies and plans of these services. And that will not help us in achieving our security objectives. However, I also feel on the part of the government, apart from creating awareness, apart from media assurances, a lot must be seen to be put on the ground that goes to the people. We must create healthy grounds for investments to come into the country, develop our capacity, make sure that the system delivers services for which they are set up. Because these are where the problems are created. They shortchange the people, they deprive them, they manipulate information. And of course, when paper speaks, the people at the top, whether they are gaining from it or not, want to keep being relevant. So politically, they want to make political statements. Right. They invoke provisions and protocols in government. Well, and you just they get people to hear what they want the people to hear, even when people know much more than that. So we must provide a healthy channel to communicate what actually government is doing, how they are doing it, why they are doing it. And government must be open to adjust when the people feel this is not the best. The choices you are making does not serve our interests. the government should be able to beat a retreat, give the people opportunity to make contribution. So when we see
Mr. Honorable, we're winding down in a few minutes
together.
now. Let me just put this in. Let me take you up on what you said earlier. What indication really do you have to say that you believe that there are more people involved in terrorism than the whole security forces, and that's talking the police, the military and others put together? What indications do you have? First, how many security forces do we have in Nigeria? I imagine about 500,000 or thereabouts. So what indication do you have?
Well, my first indication is that people live in communities where these criminals transit. They don't fly, they are not spirits, they ride motorcycles, they move in groups. And when suddenly you see unknown faces in your community and with suspicious luggages around them, and you don't inform the security agencies, you are part and parcel of the crime, you know. So when people conceal the activities of these men, then they are part of them. I believe strongly that when people begin to see the reason to expose them, and probably also the reason could be because they don't feel secure. You might provide intelligence, and again, like I said, the person at the other end getting the information might not be helpful, or his response might not be rapid. Right. So probably people have also given up. But when criminals are transiting our communities, when we know elements in our communities who are indulging in drug or substance abuse, they have wealth they didn't work for, we don't know anything they do, and they have money. We have women who don't go to work, but they are comfortable, they are living well. What is the source of their income? So these are indicators that something is not right somewhere.
Okay.
And we should be able to provide such information
to
the relevant agencies and expect that when we provide this information, these agencies will act.
All right.
And
if you can hear me, I'd like us to talk about that.
Of their informants.
That issue we raised earlier about, so a lot of people are disconcerted, afraid, discouraged. They probably will not want to even approach any INEC office to maybe get their PVCs or for this continuous voter exercise, a voter registration exercise that is ongoing. And that's another warfare we have to combat. What must be done to, give back confidence to people? I saw in that statement INEC put out saying that, the President General of Town Unions in Imo State should, and other stakeholders must, do something to ensure that staff of INEC and others are protected. What must we do to give confidence back to people to engage in this process of electing the leaders who will eventually do right by people?
Yeah, thank you. I think first is the way we also make public some of these activities. There should be some level of control, because it's not just, like I said, only INEC now. We must use all the institutions to encourage our people not to surrender our destinies, not to surrender our rights to criminals. All they want to do is to take our future. They want to take our rights away from us by force. We should encourage the churches, we should encourage traditional rulers, like I said earlier. We should encourage the national orientation agencies. We should see the police do public enlightenment campaign. We should also encourage the military and other agencies, civil defense, to get involved. There should be stakeholders across board. The state should also rally stakeholders around. Okay. And let's encourage and let our people know that this is we should also tell our people steps and measures they should take to ensure that we minimize this kind of harm coming to us, because we must be involved. We must provide information to the relevant agencies. We must also, because the man that is going to talk in INEC lives in a community. There must be people who will see that provide information. For instance, those people didn't just come. Somebody must have told them that exercise was going on at that location, and they prepared and came there. it was a mission they set out with enough intelligence. So we must watch out for such things. And I think the security agencies are doing a lot, but they should do more.
Okay.
There should be profiling. We
right.
should do, we have this NIN ongoing, and we should explore how best it can serve us. There's a lot. I mean, as a forensic officer, and I know that we can do so much in the area of tracking and identifying activities that people are carrying out or conducting using their mobile telephones across board.
We have to thank you very much this morning, Mr. Alfred Ononubo, security consultant and forensic expert. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning. And thank you for service to the nation.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure.
Okay.